Rhonda Sioka, as Fallon said. I've been with Mid-Cape just about 8 years this month. And we're happy to have Ken, one of our outside sales representatives, with us today. He's usually on the road taking care of our customer and their needs, but we welcome him today to talk a little bit more about his knowledge and what he can bring as far as creating that outdoor space. So that being said, we think about how or why we love entertaining and being outdoors. And especially here on the Cape, we have the beautiful weather, we have beautiful scenery. With things closing down over the winter time, everyone looks forward to the springtime. And we're cooped up in our houses all winter. And once spring hits, everybody wants to be outdoors. And a great way to enjoy the outdoors is to create a space that is inviting and also functional. And you know, I know everyone's tired of hearing the term social distance, and we want to all get out there and enjoy what we're used to doing, but we're almost forced now to take that space at home and create it into a place that we're used to going, whether it's a restaurant or whether it's another friend's home. You may visit and you say, oh my God, they've done this great job with this new outdoor living space. I would like to do something like that in my home. And as you can see from the photos here, it's not always just about creating a large space. A lot of us don't have a big yard or large property. I think when you're thinking about creating the space, whoever is making those decisions, you want to get together and talk about your needs versus your wants. What are you looking to accomplish at the end of the project? The middle top picture here just shows basically a grill off of the back door, it looks like, walking down into the yard. If someone's an avid, cook, it's their passion, they're always entertaining at home, it's a great way to gain that just a little extra space. You may not, you may be someone that just enjoys the indoors, but wants that little extra space outside. And with outdoor cabinetry that will withstand the elements here, in New England, we know that the weather is not always easy, and that's a great way to just gain a little extra space off of the house. You look at the right here, it looks like just a deck, but if you step down off that deck, there could be, you could create a circle with a patio. A lot of people are using masonry. We also offer a lot of great composite PVC decking that is a little bit warmer than your stone and your masonry. And if you're looking what makes an outdoor space not just inviting but functional, is adding that extra, if you want to create, if you have a smaller space and you're looking to create a more intimate gathering, creating it in a circle allows everyone to gather around a little bit more closely. If you don't have a large area, using decking to create a bench around the perimeter rather than the large furniture that you see here in the photo, that's a great way to, maximize your smaller space that you may have. You can also think about if you have a small home and you're not able to do a lot of entertaining, say in the winter months, because it's hard to, allow for that many people in your home. So when springtime comes, we all look to enjoy our outdoor space, the decks, and creating that space is almost an extension of your home. You may have a sun porch with a deck off the side, and just adding, if you wanted to add maybe some cabinetry, we're going to talk about that later, but we do offer a lot of outdoor cabinetry that does withstand the elements. So there's a lot of grills that you can insert, as the one in the top photo. Even adding a pergola will create that feeling of being in an indoor space with still being able to enjoy the view, whether it's, you know, the sky in the early evening or at night, it just creates a nice ambiance. And another way to maximize our, being here that we live in New England, the weather, we kind of only have, say, maybe 4, maybe 5 good months of warm weather that we're able to utilize an outdoor space. Bringing in a fire pit, maybe a gas fire pit, which is safe to use, whether it's on masonry, whether it's on decking. It not only creates ambiance, but it can give you a little bit of warmth. You can add a space that has maybe a half wall. I know someone that just did a beautiful project, and they actually used screens to close. It's a half wall, and if it's a really cold night, you can, you know, bring down your screens. It's a metal structure, and they have heaters on the upper part, which really just warms it and creates really a 3-season space that you can enjoy. So that's a great way to maximize the shorter season here in New England. Like I said, using decking can sometimes be a little bit warmer than, say, masonry. There's all different options, and I think basically just figuring out when you want to use the space, how much you're going to use the space. Is it more for just a gathering? Is it more for cooking and entertaining? Those are all conversations that you probably want to have, and maybe jot down your desires of what you want the outcome to be before you actually, you know, take on the project. And so why don't we switch to the next slide, Fallon? And here we have, as you can see, many great photos and options for decking. And we have Ken that's going to give you a little bit more of his expertise on how to choose and look for the decking that's going to be the best fit for you.
Does that mean I'm on?
Yeah.
Good morning. Thank you all for joining us. As Rhonda said, I'm Ken Leandry. I'm an outside salesperson for Mid-Cape Home Centers. I've been here just about 6 years. Prior to that, I spent my career as a project manager. So creating outdoor spaces is kind of something that I've done a lot of. So I don't want to talk about me. I want to talk about things that can help you create this space. This is a huge investment in your property, in the big picture, you know, to create this space. So there's a lot of things that, moving parts and what have you, that you really need to pay attention to, you know, without getting into technicals with towns and setbacks and so on and so forth, which if you're not working with an architect or a designer, you really should start by reaching out to a licensed contractor, someone who's insured, and someone who's been doing this a while. I think sometimes we see the neighbor's handyman and we call him over and he gives us a price and we're like, oh, that's great. But there's some things with the codes that change back and forth that really require a licensed contractor to look at. And they have experience using products that you may choose. So I apologize if I repeat myself, or if you have any questions, please feel free to ask or jump in. The one thing I would say when we're choosing products, to do your research online, a little bit on, you know, depending on what your desire is. Are you looking for a minimal maintenance project? You know, something that may need, you know, a wood or let me back up for 1 second. When you're doing your research, there's different types of decking. There's pressure treated decking, which is, you know, withstand the test of time. We've been using it for, you know, 50 plus years. It lasts a really long time. It isn't as attractive. It's very simple. It's very modest, but it serves its purpose. It creates an outdoor living space that's very simple, easy to maintain. You just clean it once a year and You know, if you choose to stain it, then you stain it every year too. But for the most part, pressure treated decking is very simple. Then you move into like your composite decking. AZEK and Trex both have a composite decking, which is made up of recycled materials, some wood, you know, your recycled plastic bags and your water bottles and bottle caps and all that. And then they put an outer core on them. Those products are good. They meet a green standard. You know, if you're looking to create an outdoor space and feel good about what you're doing without, you know, some people, you know, like cut down trees and what have you. This is really, really, these are products that are really good for that. And then when you move into like a PVC deck, AZEK, Zuri, these are two products that are really, really good. And their cores are all PVC. They have an outer layer that gives you the look that you're looking for, whether it's a simple gray or a more exotic gray. You know, they have really used a lot of technology to create a real wood look in a PVC deck. It's unbelievable how far it's come in a short amount of time. But that being said, if you are a wood person, there's some really, really great wood products out there. You know, mahogany, garapa, kimura, ipe. These are all products that work really well in New England. Because of their density, they withstand the salt air, and they really, really are very hardy, and they're heavy too. In a coastal community with, you know, a lot of times they don't want pressure treated decking, despite how the pressure treated deck in the picture shows above a seawall. In some towns on Cape Cod, you can't put pressure treated on the ground or a sonotube in. So the epes and the mahoganies and everything really, really, really help to get your outdoor living space in a space that you may not have had before. You know, a lot of towns don't want hardscapes in these areas, so the deck really, really, really helps. In choosing your deck, there's some decisions. You know, really some tough decisions are, sometimes it might be your budget. You know, I want a deck, but I really, you know, I got to stay in this price point. And so you're limited in your selections. You may really, really desire another product, but you're limited. And that's okay, because you can do things creatively and do it in phases to get you where you want to be. And I'm just going to throw some numbers out here, like for cost. This is like retail cost. If you were just buying the decking material, like pressure treated decking, you know, you're looking at $2.50 to $4 a square foot. Really modest. But then composites, you know, those are the ones that are made out of recycled material. Trex and AZEK both have them. That they really have someone whose budget is a little bit better than pressure treated, but not quite into, you know, the upper tier. And they have products, you know, somewhere the $3 to, you know, you can go as high as $15 because there's some real nice products a square foot. But $3 a square foot deck product is really, really good. It just, you know, sometimes may require an additional, you know, framing member, but it's a really, really good product. And then in your PVCs, you go from $7 to $20 a square foot. They tend to focus like on a little higher end. And then your exotic woods, you know, you can get anywhere from $4.50 to, you know, 25 plus per square foot. Most of the time, those are architect driven on that, but for the most part, those products you can incorporate, you know, real wood with some of your PVCs and composites as well, you know, for your handrails and so on and so forth. Maintenance, on the maintenance side of things, there's a lot of misconceptions on the composite and PVC decks, you know, Trex, AZEK, so on and so forth. People think there's no maintenance with it, and there really is a little bit of maintenance with everything you do. With your decking, you've got to clean it every year. It's being on Cape Cod, you know, there's always some type of debris blowing around that ends up on your deck and then leaves it back, you know, whether it's a dark spot or something like that. So you really need to be careful on what you use as well. So like simple green, and there's some other, materials, deck, PVC deck or composite deck cleaners online. They're very, very mild cleaners. You don't want to take bleach out to your composite deck. It's just not, it's not good for it. We'll just put it that way. So you really need to think about that with it, and then some other things in your decision making is if you want to have a floor mat or a mat underneath the table or a doormat. Composite and PVC decks don't like that at all. They tend to leave some stains, and it fades differently. I've seen a couple, I don't know how they work, online of some doormats that you can put on composite decking. I don't know how well they work. I just read their reviews. So I tend to follow up on that.
Can I ask a question?
Absolutely.
On any of the composite decking like that, you're talking about the mats too. I know that sometimes, having a grill and, suntan lotion can even stain anything with an oil. Having a grill on there, does that negate any warranty that the manufacturer may offer?
It will, in that area. So if the grill is in that area, that's going to be, they're not going to warranty it. And that's where I always say, well, in that grill area, if you did wood underneath the grill's never going to move. Then we, use, whether it be pressure treated or, something else there just under the grill space. So that way when the grill does leak, because it's going to, if you're like me with a smoker, there's always, a nice little stain underneath there. But that being said, you can pretty much just create a space for the grill that never has to be touched, and then it doesn't void the warranty on the other areas. So I'm going to go back a little bit just because I kind of skipped an area. When you're working with your contractor or your architect or your designer, I always say, ask for everything. I want a storage space under the deck. I want, special rails. I want this. Ask, I want to put a kitchen out there. I want to do everything. And sometimes, even though it might be out of the budget, but if you want all these things at some point, in the beginning stages with your contractor or your designer, there are things they can do to reinforce, like, so that later on, today we're going to build a deck, and then in the fall we're going to add the kitchen, or the next year we're going to add the kitchen, or we're going to add a pergola, or we're going to add these add-on items, because sometimes additional framing needs to be done. And if you build this wonderful deck space in this living space, then you say, oh, I really wish I had a pergola. You may, if you don't prepare for it now, you won't be able to have it later without creating more expense than needed. So I always say, ask for everything, and just tell them, I want to be prepared for phase two. There's always a phase two in every project. It starts off at A and ends up at B. So I would ask for everything when it comes to that. If you are an avid outdoor person and you use your deck like me on a regular basis, there's some couple things, do you want lighting, benches, planters, I mentioned the storage space, and I use that storage space under the deck. It's great for kayaks. If you're a kayaker, if your deck sits up high enough, you could create a door out of some simple lattice under the deck and put the kayak underneath, and really, really, really utilize a space that's utilized. And that would never be utilized is now becomes a very usable space. So those are things that I always try to keep in mind when I'm talking to homeowners, or even when I'm dealing with contractors, about that space that normally would be considered just under the deck, So I've seen them used as carports, for a second floor deck where people would make the deck big and then they can drive their cars underneath it. So, so those are things that, other additional things you can do with a deck. So if you have any questions, feel free. Anybody can ask anytime. I wanted to get into some maintenance side of things on when you're making your decisions. As I mentioned, on a PT deck, it's got to be cleaned every year. PT tends to get a little mildewy because of southern yellow pine and our moist, humid air. It tends to just get like a little film on it. And PT, you'll see people out there pressure washing their decks every spring, and it's not recommended to pressure wash any deck. It's really, if you use, I can't even think of the cleaner right now, but it's an outdoor deck cleaner. You could spray it on in the spring, scrub it with a light brush, and then as the weather warms, it'll just take care of all of the mildew on it, and you don't have to scrub and you don't have to do anything. I think it's called wet and forget, if I'm not mistaken. You can put it on, it'll take care of it. It's not harmful if your pets walk on it and stuff like that. So you don't have to worry about, harsh chemicals being into the soil. It's really, really environmentally friendly, and you don't have to worry about it. It kind of takes care of itself. They don't have products like that for the composites and the PVC decks, the Trex and the AZEKs. So you have to use like a simple green or a soft cleaner on those, as I mentioned earlier. But when you get into the exotic woods, these woods can silver and gray out if you let them go. If you just let them go, all of the wood decks will all eventually end up gray of some sort, whether it's dark gray, light gray, silver, what have you. But these hardwoods, your Ipe, your mahogany, your Angelique, all of these woods really, really are dense hardwoods. And they like a little oil, and Ipe oil is one that you can put on it. You put it on every spring. It'll keep the color, the vibrant browns. It'll keep, you'll see all the grain. It'll really, really keep it nice. But it's a yearly event with that. You're not going to, if you skip a year, then you're going to kind of start from scratch and clean it properly and everything. So so I would say, your woods tend to have a little bit more maintenance, but they tend to last a lot longer with that maintenance. I wanted to move into rails. There's a million rails options. There's wood, there's AZEK, there's Trex, there's Intex, there's cable, there's glass. Every rail has an amazing ability to do something for you. So when you're in a wood rail, like in the pressure treated rail, you get a 2x6 top, you can set a plate up there, you can set your glass of wine up there while you're entertaining, or your bottle of water. It's really secure, and it serves a purpose. It's very strong, it's very durable. It's a necessary evil on a deck. So, if you have one too many glasses of wine, it keeps you from falling over. But sorry, I shouldn't joke like that. But it's really, really a simple rail, as you can see in the picture. Then you move into the AZEK, and AZEK, Trex, and Intex all are a PVC rail. They all have special features. AZEK has different styles and thicknesses, and you can get bigger posts and smaller posts, and they really, really, really offer a lot of color options. You can get browns and tans and grays and so on and so forth in the AZEK and the Trex. Intex is only white. But you can get pyramid caps on it. You can get in those lines, they all carry deck lighting and post cap lighting and riser lights for your stairs and so on and so forth. So those PVC rails really offer a lot of accessories to your decking package that you may not think of when you come in and look in the showroom, because it may not be displayed. But there's a lot of options there for you to have, you know, things that you normally wouldn't think of. You know, you're like, oh, I just got this bright, you know, LED light hanging off the back of the house. But this could really, you know, with the ocean backdrop, with a little ambient lighting hanging around, it makes it a very, very romantic evening, you know, for a couple people. Or it could be a party, and you could, you know, everyone can see where they're going without, you know, any issues, you know, being able to see. Then when we move over to the cable rail, so this cable rail that's in this picture is actually combined with AZEK rail. So this is where you can combine cable rail, which the one pictured here is Atlantis. It's very nice. It's very nautical looking. It really, really has a special look with it, because it's got these turnbuckles. It's really, really sharp looking. But it leads me into, you can combine every one of these rails with each other. So if you look at this, the picture, you can see how the AZEK rail is, the top rail is there, and they got the cable rail there. But if you moved over and the wind was blowing, you could add the glass rail. And I don't talk a lot about glass rail because of the cost of it. It's extremely expensive. It's beautiful, but it's just an expensive rail. But if you were to put the glass rail in the prevailing wind area, it would deflect the wind, and you could have the cable. You'd still have the view. The one thing about all of these rails that I failed to mention was the wood rails tend to be very blocky, and they don't tend to open up the view as much as the other rails. I don't know why, as the spacing on the balusters is all the same, but the wood rails tend to look a little bit blockier than the PVC, and obviously the cable and what have you. And in these pictures is these beautiful views on the backside. In my house, we have this deck, but our view is of a fence. So even with all of these products, you can use cable and everything and just make that outdoor space. And Rhonda mentioned earlier, if you have a smaller yard like I do, that deck with that 14-foot deck with a little bit of cable rail makes it feel like the entire backyard is now my living space. So it really, really opens things up for you to have the opportunity to not feel closed in on this small deck, but then it opens it up to the entire backyard. I'm trying to think, I have some notes here. I'm just going to touch on pergolas, and I know Rhonda wants to follow up on this. So when you're, oops, I missed the stair lighting and accessories, so please, I will go back to that. So in all of these pictures, we jumped. In the stair lighting, you can see how they have different colors and what have you. All of the stair lighting and the riser lighting and the post lighting, it's all low voltage lighting. It all is plug and play. So maybe you don't want your contractor to install this, and you want to do it later on. You can do this. This is simple instructions. It doesn't require an electrician in. It just plugs into an outside outlet, and you can run the wire, and everything clips together very nicely. It's not a labor of love, but you can do this yourself later on in phase 2 or what have you. But all of these lights really, really add, and I'll use the bottom right picture. It's almost lit up like daytime, but you can put these on separate switches. So maybe you only have the stair lights on, or the post lights on, depending on your event for the evening. If you're just going out for the evening and you just want, the riser lights on, like pictured in the middle, you can put those on. But if you're having a party and you're gathering and maybe you want all the lights on so it's lit up, so for people's safety and for people to communicate and what have you. So those are things you can have. And if we look at the top right picture with the lattice there, that was the deck I was talking about with the storage space underneath. That picture there is, you know, what I would call the prototypical Cape Cod deck. They've got their PVC decking, PVC rail, you know, their lattice underneath. I'm sure they, you know, store their, you know, all their outdoor furniture and what have you under there for the winter. Their kayaks or canoes and, you know, bicycles to keep the backyard clean. So that is what I would call the typical Cape Cod deck. So if I can touch on pergolas now. So when designing a pergola, this is really, really, really where you can add value to your home. These create an outdoor living space that you feel like you have a roof over your head, but the fresh air is still able to come in. They sell canvases, and not tarps, I want to say canvas and canopies and shades that allow the sun to come in, you know, when the sun's right over the top. You know, sometimes it's hot out there, but you can put that over that shade can come right over, and then at night you can open up that shade and allow the stars and the moon and everything. And it's a really, really, really beautiful piece of artwork, I guess I would call it, you know, in the big picture for your home. And lastly, I wanted to touch on some things that when you're doing these projects, if this is your forever home and and you want to have these things and it's for me, then I would say plan for everything, have everything. But if this is a rental, I did some research last night on some things. So on a rental property, if you have a deck alone on the backside of your property, it would add 10 to 20% on a weekly rental. So, you know, so that's significant. The resale value, you only get 82% back on it. So if this is a property that you're thinking about selling in the near future, maybe you don't shoot for the stars on everything. But if it's something, you know, because you're not going to get it. But on the flip side, if you add an outdoor kitchen and a living space, it adds a minimum of 25% to your rental and a minimum of 200% to 500% on the resale value. So it's amazing that just adding a pergola and a grill, a hard line gas grill to your deck could raise the resale value of that deck, of that investment, 200%. So it's just some food for thought. Any questions?
Thank you,
I'll turn it
Ken.
back over to Rhonda.
Thank you. That's all great
You're
info.
welcome.
And another thing about a pergola, you know, a lot of people love to garden, and in those nice outdoor spaces, I've seen people, you know, grow vines or some type of flowering, or even a rose bush that can climb and crawl, and it does create that little extra piece of covering that really makes it intimate when you have a small gathering. And I think it really just gives that little extra special touch to that outdoor space that, you know, a lot of us desire to have. So outdoor kitchen.
May I ask Ken a question?
Sure.
Ken, what about the temperature of the composite decking? We have a small deck. It's probably about 12 years old, and it gets so hot. You can't even go on it in bare feet.
Well, unfortunately, most of the composite decks have a smooth finish, and that creates it's like putting a rubber tire in the back of your truck and then touching it at the end of the day. And I understand it gets very, very hot. Some of the newer deck lines in the PV and AZEK they have grooves, which is a new technology where if it has grooves, it's still hot. And I don't want to say that it's not hot, but it's not as hot because the way the sunlight deflects off the grooves. The only thing I can explain it to is If you ever go to someone's pickup that has it Line-X'd and it's bumpy in the back, and it doesn't matter how hot it is outside, the material is black, you can put your hand on it and touch it. It'll be warm, but it won't burn you. Some of the original PVCs and what have you, the smoother the finish, excuse me, the hotter the surface will be. It's the only way I can explain it. So like when you're in those, when you're making a decision like that, if it's a rental property or, you know, you got small children, I would tend to go on the higher end for cost, just because there's a little more options that can keep the temperature down. There's not a perfect PVC deck. There just isn't. The composite and the PVC decking, Trex and AZEK, there is not a perfect one out there that says, I guarantee you this one's not going to burn you for heat. It's just it's kind of the bad part about PVC decking and the expansion and contraction. There's a couple other things there, but I forgot to mention on the fastening systems. But the heat, there's really no answer to it other than that. I hope I didn't confuse you.
Okay, thank you. So thinking about outdoor kitchens per se, which would be a little bit more functional than just an outdoor living space, because it's a place where you would maybe have, you know, your nightly dinner, entertaining. And we did talk earlier about masonry versus cabinetry. One of the bonuses and the pluses about going with an outdoor cabinetry is you can pick and choose the colors to match whatever decking you decide to install. And we have two choices here that we can offer through Mid-Cape for cabinetry. And one would be more of a similar to a decking material, which is a PVC composite. And it's made of they're called open air cabinetry. They're all recycled material. They'll resist mold, mildew, and bacteria. They're basically maintenance-free, corrosion resistant. Thank you, Fallon, for skipping onto that slide. There'll be no delaminating or swelling. As you know, when you have an indoor cabinet, if your home is not temperature controlled with air conditioning or heat, if it's just a cottage, you know, in the winter and summer, you can have that expand and contract element that will make your cabinets look a little funny. You'll get spacing. With the outdoor cabinetry, even in the hot sun or in the winter months, you won't have that. You won't have that happen. It's a solid color throughout the core, and they come with stainless drawer glides and hinges. So there's no problem there with rusting and rotting. They offer an array of colors. That's for the composite. We also have another line of cabinetry called Endurance from a company called Wolf. And they are basically aluminum cabinets. And they offer the hardscape inserts, which means if you're looking to do more of the masonry type, you know, patio wall or seating, they're compatible with that, and they're inserts that can fit right into that. They're fully assembled and ready to use. They're all powder coated, and they're all the storage is watertight. It's sealed with an EPDMD seal, which will make the interior of the cabinet watertight, so you won't have to worry about when it rains. If you are, you know, creating a space that is not under a roof. And also thinking about the pergola, you know, we have also seen where people might want to add a small overhang or some type of roof, whether it's off of the side of, it could be even your shed, it could be your the back entrance into a sun porch, maybe off of the slider, and just creating that little overhang does give that real extension of your home and allows you to maximize whether it's your deck or whether it's that patio that you're creating for your outdoor space. And then we can talk about hardware and I'm sorry, countertops. So I don't know if any of you sat in on any of our indoor kitchen webinars. We talked about countertops and what most people are recommending now, and what seems to be the trend is a quartz. A lot of reasons: bacteria. You don't need to seal them. The maintenance is much easier. The cleaning is much more easy. For exterior, especially here in New England, where you have the temperature, the fluctuating, really hot, really cold temperatures, we do recommend granite or a porcelain. Granite obviously is a man-made. It's a natural stone that resists, a lot of the UV lighting from the sun. It won't fade. Porcelain, you can, take something hot off the grill or off of a burner that you may have outside and stick it on the porcelain, and you won't have any cracking or staining or things like that. A lot of people want to have a small faucet. You think about your inside, and a lot of people add a bar sink for entertaining. This is also a great way if you're cooking vegetables or any type of meat, raw meat. You want to be able to wash your utensils, wash your hands. And we do have many sources for stainless sinks, stainless faucets. So those are things that you also want to think about when you're creating that outdoor. If you are thinking of making it an actual kitchen, the items that you would install in your own indoor kitchen, you can really create that same type of atmosphere outside and enjoy the beautiful weather. So for hardware and accessories, a lot of the cabinets, as you can see on the left-hand side, we all know that when we entertain outside, there's a lot more aluminum and plastic, and they have the pullouts so you can access a receptacle, whether it's for recycling or just trash. Here in a coastal community, everyone always likes to feel beachy and nautical, and a great way to do that is using a boat cleat as your hardware pulls. And I've also seen people use even like a marine grade rope or roping to use for your draw pulls or anything of that nature. So I guess in closing, if anyone has any questions, we can certainly get to that. But we live in a great area, whether it's Cape Cod or even Newport, anywhere up north, Kennebunk, the islands of Martha's Vineyard, Nantucket. Everyone loves to entertain and to just enjoy the outdoor space. And we have a lot of resources, and we're happy to answer any questions. My information as well as Ken's is listed here below, and we really welcome you to either reach out, get in touch with one of your contractors. They may be a customer of ours, and would be happy to work with them and work with you. We have many great showrooms that you can come in and touch and feel and really get a feel for what it is you want to create and the end project that you want to accomplish and be able to enjoy for many, many years to come. So I and Ken, thank you very much for your time today. And if there's any more questions, we would be happy to answer those for you.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much. If there's no other questions, I think we can wrap up for the day. And again, thank you for all of that incredible information.
Thank
Thanks
you
for being here.